The success algorithm, timeless principles that turn thoughts into wealth and impact. Every single millionaire you know. Every leader who built something from nothing. Every person who changed their life. They all followed the same mental laws. Not coincidence. Not luck. Science. Real, predictable, repeatable science discovered nearly a century ago. And here's what keeps you broke. 99% of people know these principles exist, but they never learn them. They never use them. So for the next hour, we're not talking about motivation. We're not talking about inspiration. We're talking about the actual mechanical laws that turn your thoughts into wealth, your ideas into impact, and your potential into reality. The question isn't whether these laws work. They work. The only question is, will you? Chapter 1, The Law of Thought First. Your reality is a reflection of your dominant thoughts, not your circumstances. Listen, I'm going to tell you something that will either liberate you or infuriate you. Probably both. Your life right now is not an accident. It's not bad luck. It's not because the economy is broken or your boss is incompetent or your family didn't give you enough. Your life is exactly what your dominant thoughts have built. Every dollar in your account, every relationship you're in, every opportunity you've missed, every success you've claimed. Thought first always. Before there was an empire, there was a thought. Before there was a company, there was a thought. Before there was wealth, there was a thought. Every single thing in your reality started as a dominant thought in someone's mind. A vision, a conviction, a repeated belief that became so real, so persistent, that it shaped their actions, attracted the right people, and eventually materialized into tangible results. This is not mystical. This is not wishful thinking. This is mechanical. Think about it. Every entrepreneur you admire, they saw what didn't exist yet. They thought about it first. Every business that dominates its market, someone believed it into existence before the market even knew it needed it. Every transformation you've witnessed, it started in someone's mind. The thought preceded the reality. Always. And here's what most people get wrong. They think circumstances create thoughts. Wrong. Thoughts create circumstances. That's the key. Your bank account is not mysterious. It's not arbitrary. Your bank account is a scoreboard of your financial thoughts. Look at it. That number didn't appear from nowhere. It's the visible manifestation of your habitual financial beliefs, your spending patterns, your earning convictions, your scarcity or abundance mindset playing out month after month, year after year. Your relationships? Same principle. They reflect your worth beliefs, how you think you deserve to be treated, how you think about your value, how you think about commitment. Your body, your fitness, your health. All reflections of your dominant thoughts about discipline and what you're willing to tolerate from yourself. This is not inspirational. This is mechanical, and that's important to understand. Now here's where most people get defensive. They blame circumstances. They blame the economy. They blame their upbringing. They blame their boss, their industry, their luck. But I want you to observe something crucial. People in identical circumstances with identical upbringings in identical industries create wildly different results. Same situation, different outcomes. Why? Because they think differently. You have a choice about what you think. You don't need their permission. You don't need the economy's approval. You don't need to wait for circumstances to change. You already have access to your dominant thoughts right now. Let me be specific. There are two operating systems. Two ways of thinking about your life and your potential. Poverty thinking and wealth thinking. Poverty thinking operates in scarcity. The core belief is there's not enough. There's not enough money, not enough opportunities, not enough time. I'll never make it. That's for other people. People like me don't become successful. That job is too good for me. That person is special, I'm not. This mindset is a prison, and the prison guard is your own habitual thought. Poverty thinking says I have to protect what little I have because more is impossible. So what does that produce? Defensive behavior, hesitation, missed opportunities, no risks, no growth. A self-fulfilling prophecy. Wealth thinking operates in abundance. The core belief is, I don't have it yet, but I can figure it out. That person's success proves it's possible. If they did it, I can study what they did and do it better. There's enough for all of us, and my abundance doesn't diminish anyone else's. This person thinks I can create what I need. So what does that produce? Action, curiosity, risk-taking, resilience, growth, momentum, same economy, same opportunities available, same market, different thoughts, different results. Your life is the mirror of your mind. What you see reflected back is what's actually happening inside your head. And here's the non-negotiable truth. You cannot outwork a broke mind. You cannot hustle your way out of scarcity thinking. You cannot force yourself to succeed if your dominant thoughts are poverty thoughts. You will sabotage yourself. You will self-correct back to your belief level. You will manufacture obstacles that don't need to exist, because your actions follow your thoughts. Your actions follow your convictions. Your actions follow your habitual beliefs. Fix the thinking and the doing becomes inevitable. Not hard. Inevitable. You start getting curious instead of defensive. You start asking questions instead of making excuses. You start believing that solutions exist before you can see them. And then, this is critical, you start acting like a person who believes they can figure it out. And you do. You mastered this fundamental principle. Thought first always. Your thoughts are not observers of your life. They are architects of it. You have a choice about what you think. Right now. Today. And that choice is the foundation of everything that follows. Now let's talk about the second principle that separates people who build actual wealth from people who stay stuck. Chapter 2. Stop proving and start serving. The desperate need for validation is the death of wealth. You want to know why you're still broke? I'll tell you exactly why. You're still proving yourself, proving you're smart, proving you're worthy, proving you deserve respect, proving you're not like those other people. You're performing, you're broadcasting, you're seeking validation from an audience that doesn't pay your bills. And while you're busy proving, you're not building. This is energetic bankruptcy. This is the fundamental leak that drains broke people of their power. Every moment, and I mean every moment, that you spend seeking validation from other people is energy that's not going toward creating something valuable. It's not going toward solving a problem. It's not going toward building a business, developing a skill, or creating impact. It's going into a black hole. A performance for an audience that will forget you tomorrow anyway. Broke people are obsessed with validation. They refresh their social media. They tell people their plans before they execute. They seek approval for their ideas. They fish for compliments. They brag about what they're about to do. They need everyone to know they're working, thinking, planning, trying. It's exhausting. And it's a signal. It's a poverty signal. Seek approval, stay broke. Seek results, get rich. Here's what the wealthy learned that broke people haven't figured out yet: nobody cares. And that's liberating. The people you think are judging you aren't thinking about you at all. They're thinking about themselves. They're worried about their own problems, their own insecurities, their own status. They're not sitting around evaluating whether you deserve respect. They don't care if you're trying. They don't care about your intentions. They care about one thing only: what can you do for them? Wealthy people figured this out early. Most of them stopped caring what others think somewhere in their 20s. Not because they became arrogant, because they became focused. They realized that the approval of the crowd is worthless. What matters? Results. What matters? Solving problems. What matters? Impact. What matters? The actual value you create in the world. That's it. Everything else is noise. And the signal they stopped sending was the look at me signal. They went quiet. Real wealth moves silently. Let me repeat that. Real wealth moves silently. The need to tell people about your wins, your plans, your goals, your strategy. This is a poverty signal. You're broadcasting because you need external validation to feel real. A truly abundant person is too busy building to broadcast. They execute. They deliver results. They let those results speak. And the results are so loud, nobody needs them to say anything. Think about the most successful people you know. Not the people with the biggest social media following. The actually successful ones. The ones making real money. Building real businesses. Creating real impact. How much do they tell you about what they're doing? Most of them tell you nothing until the project is finished. Until the results are undeniable. Until they've already won. Then they might mention it in passing. But the work? The struggle? The process? That happens in silence. This is the signature of power. Silence is the signature of power. Most people waste 80% of their power telling everyone what they're going to do instead of actually doing it. They use up their energy on commentary, on explanation, on justification, on performance. They talk about their goals so much that the talking becomes a substitute for the doing. They get the dopamine hit from telling someone about their plan, and then they wonder why the plan never materializes. The energy they were supposed to invest in execution went into validation seeking. That's why it didn't work. You want to know the difference between someone who's going to make it and someone who isn't? The person who's going to make it stops talking and starts working. They move in silence. They execute without commentary. They build without broadcasting. And one day they're so far ahead, so successful, so valuable that nobody needs to ask if they're worth respecting. It's obvious. But here's where most people get stuck. They're so addicted to validation they don't know how to stop. So let me give you the mechanism for the shift. The pivot happens in a single moment. The moment you stop asking, "What do people think of me?" and start asking, "What problem can I solve for them?" That's the shift. From validation seeking to value creation. From performance to service. Service creates wealth. Performance creates exhaustion. When you're in performance mode, you're desperate. You're reactive. You're shaped by external opinions. You're fragile. Any criticism breaks you. Any judgment affects your direction. You're controlled by the crowd, and broke people are always in performance mode. When you're in service mode, you're clear. You're focused on one thing, solving a problem that exists in the market. You're not asking, "Will people like this?" You're asking, "Does this solve the problem?" You're not seeking approval. You're seeking feedback on whether your solution actually works, and that completely changes everything. The moment you shift from "look at me, validate me" to "let me solve your problem," something magnetic happens. Opportunities appear. Money flows. Respect arrives. Not because you demanded it, because you earned it through actual value, and value is invisible when you're seeking validation. But the moment you stop seeking and start serving, value becomes visible to everyone. Money flows to those who serve, not those who perform. This is not theoretical. This is the mechanics of how wealth actually builds. Every dollar you're earning is because you solved a problem for someone. Every dollar you'll ever earn will be because you solved a problem for someone. The more problems you solve, the more money flows. The more time you spend performing and proving, the fewer problems you solve. It's that simple. So here's what you stop doing immediately. You stop telling people what you're going to do. You stop seeking feedback on your plans from people who aren't paying you. You stop broadcasting your work. You stop fishing for compliments. You stop needing external permission to believe in yourself. You have a choice. You don't need their approval. And here's what you start doing. You start identifying problems. Real problems that real people have. You start solving them. You start building solutions in silence. You start executing without commentary. You start moving like a person with something to prove to themselves, not to everyone else. You serve instead of perform. The results will speak louder than any validation ever could. You've mastered this shift. You've stopped proving and started serving. You've understood that silence is power, and service creates wealth. Now let's talk about the third pillar that separates the wealthy from everyone else. Chapter 3. The compound effect of small daily decisions. Tiny choices made repeatedly create astronomical results over time. Here's what separates people who build wealth from people who stay broke. It has nothing to do with luck. Nothing to do with timing. Nothing to do with being in the right place. It's this. Wealthy people understand compounding. Not just financial compounding. Decision compounding. Habit compounding. The compounding of small, boring, repetitive choices made over years. You don't get rich in one day. You don't build an empire in one quarter. You don't transform your life by changing everything at once. Anyone who tells you that is selling you something. What actually happens is this. A small advantage, repeated consistently, compounded over years, becomes an insurmountable edge. Let me give you the math so you understand what you're actually dealing with. 1% improvement daily. That's it. Not 10%. Not 50%. 1% better than you were yesterday. What does that look like over a year? 37 times better. 37 times. Over 5 years? The numbers become absurd. You're unrecognizable compared to where you started. But people don't think in those terms. They think in terms of overnight. The one hack. The one move. The secret they haven't discovered yet. That's why they're still broke. Boring beats exciting. Consistency beats intensity. This is the fundamental principle that wealthy people have internalized and broke people reject. You want excitement. You want the big play. You want the story where everything changes in a moment. That doesn't exist. What exists is the opposite of exciting. What exists is boring, repetitive, unglamorous. Small daily decisions made consistently over years until the results become impossible to ignore. Think about it. 1,000 days of small decisions. What does that compound to? Everything. Your entire life. Your bank account. Your health. Your relationships. Your skills. Your reputation. Your opportunities. All of it is the compound result of the small decisions you made when nobody was watching. Boring beats exciting. That's not inspiring. That's just true. But here's what breaks most people. They see someone successful and they try to adopt their current practices. They look at the wealthy person's life right now and they try to copy it. Biggest mistake you can make. You're seeing the final result. You're not seeing the decade of boring decisions that created that result. You're not seeing the 1,000 days of small choices made when there was nothing glamorous about it. You're skipping the boring middle and then wondering why you don't get the results. Your daily habits are your net worth's greatest predictor. Not your IQ, not your family connections. Not your luck. Not your education. Your habits. That's it. Think about who you know that's successful. Really successful. The ones making real money. Building real businesses, living real freedom. What do they do every single day? They read. They work on their business before their family wakes up. They think about problems. They execute. They track their finances. They invest. They learn. They optimize. They never stop. These aren't sexy activities. These aren't activities you'd put on social media. These are invisible activities that nobody sees but you. And yet these activities determine 99% of your outcome. Your habits are your destiny on repeat. On the other side, look at broke people. What are their daily habits? Scrolling, complaining, watching, reacting, spending, consuming, gossiping, looking for shortcuts. These habits are also invisible to everyone but them. And these habits also determine their outcome. Same principle. Different direction. The person who reads 30 minutes daily instead of scrolling social media for an hour, that person reads 30 books a year instead of 0. Over 5 years? That's 150 books. 150 times they've filled their mind with knowledge while you filled yours with noise. That's the compound effect. That's the edge that becomes insurmountable. The person who works on their business for 2 hours before work instead of checking emails and reacting to the day, that's 10 hours a week. That's 40 hours a month. That's 480 hours a year. Over 5 years? That's 2,400 hours of focused, uninterrupted work on building something valuable. Meanwhile, you're reacting to everyone else's priorities. And then you wonder why they got ahead. The person who invests 5% of their income monthly instead of spending it all, that's discipline in action. Over 5 years, that compounds into a substantial asset. Over 10 years? That's generational wealth starting to form. Meanwhile, you spend it on things you don't even remember. Micro habits, invisible habits. These are what determine everything. But here's where most people fail. And I want you to hear this clearly because this is where you get separated from the mass. They see someone successful. They see their current practices. They try to replicate those practices without ever understanding the foundation. The invisible foundation. The boring middle that built the person they're trying to copy. You can't skip the boring phase. That's where the real work happens. That's where the real competitors are separated from the pretenders. The secret advantage is always in the boring work nobody sees. Because boring work is invisible, people skip it. They think it's not real work. They think it doesn't matter. They think they can jump straight to the exciting part. The big deals, the public success, the results. But the results only exist because someone spent years doing boring work, years of decisions that nobody celebrated, nobody acknowledged. Nobody saw. That's your opportunity. That's where you move. While everyone else is waiting for permission, waiting for the right moment, waiting for the perfect conditions, you're doing boring work, reading, learning, building, executing, making small decisions consistently, day after day, while nobody's watching, while it seems like nothing is happening, while it feels pointless, and then 5 years pass, and suddenly you're unrecognizable. Your bank account looks different. Your opportunities look different. Your options look different. Your results look different. And people will ask you what happened. They'll want to know the secret. And you'll tell them. Boring daily decisions compounded over years, but they won't believe you. Because boring doesn't sell. Drama sells. Hacks sell. Overnight success stories sell. Boring doesn't sell. So they'll keep looking for the secret, and you'll keep building. The compound effect doesn't care if it's exciting. It works either way. 1% better daily, consistently over years, that's the formula. That's the non-negotiable mechanic of how wealth actually builds. Boring beats exciting. Consistency beats intensity. You understand this now. You've internalized it. Small daily decisions repeated, compounded over time. Astronomical results. But there's one more element that separates the truly wealthy from everyone else. They don't just compound decisions, they compound their money. And that requires a completely different mindset. Chapter 4. Your network is your net worth. You will become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Listen to me carefully. This is going to be the most direct statement you hear in this entire book. Your circle determines your ceiling, not your talent, not your effort, not your intelligence, your circle. The 5 people you spend the most time with are literally programming your brain. They're shaping your beliefs. They're determining what's possible in your mind. They're setting the frequency at which you operate. And here's the hard truth. Your income will trend toward the average of those 5 people. Your goals will expand or contract based on who's sitting at that table. Your opportunities will appear or disappear depending on the network you're embedded in. This is not metaphorical. This is not inspirational psychology. This is neuroscience. This is how human beings actually work. When you're around ambitious, wealthy, game-changing people, their operating systems transfer to you. You don't have to consciously absorb it. It just happens. You're in conversation and you hear how they think about problems, how they see opportunities, how they move, how fast they move, how they talk about money, how they talk about impossible things like they're inevitable, and your brain starts rewiring. Your reference points shift. What seemed impossible 6 months ago now seems like a reasonable goal because you're around people for whom it's normal. Conversely, when you're trapped with people who are stuck, and I mean stuck, not just paused, their stagnation is contagious. It's not their fault. It's not malicious. But stagnation transfers. Complaint transfers. Scarcity thinking transfers. Fear transfers. When everyone around you is playing small, your brain defaults to small. When everyone around you is making excuses, you make excuses. When everyone around you is talking about how the economy is broken and the game is rigged, your subconscious accepts that as reality. And then you play accordingly. Your circle determines your ceiling, not what you think is possible, not what you want to achieve. What your circle believes is possible for people like you, that becomes your ceiling. Here's what most people don't want to hear. This requires ruthlessness. Wealthy people are often labeled cold, ungrateful, calculating. They get labeled that way by people they've outgrown. And you know what? Wealthy people do it anyway. They remove people from their life. People they've known for years. People they care about. People who cared about them. They do it because they understand something that broke people haven't accepted yet. You cannot level up while staying close to people operating at lower frequencies. This is not about arrogance. This is not about thinking you're better than anyone. This is about mathematics. If you want to 10x your income, you cannot spend significant time with people who are playing for $50,000 a year. The frequency doesn't match. The ambition doesn't align. The conversations don't lead anywhere productive. And here's what happens. Their ceiling becomes your ceiling. Their fears become your reference points. Their limitations become your limitations. Evolution requires distance from your past. When you evolve, you outgrow certain relationships. This is painful. It's real. It's one of the costs of growth that nobody wants to talk about. But it's non-negotiable, and the faster you accept it, the faster you move. This doesn't mean you're mean to people. You don't humiliate them. You don't burn bridges publicly. You handle it with dignity, but you do it. You create distance. You spend less time. You redirect energy. You make space for new relationships that match where you're going, not where you've been. Evolution requires distance from your past. Now here's what actually creates wealth building: proximity. You need to identify people who are 3 to 5 years ahead of where you want to be. That's your target, not 20 years ahead. Not so far ahead that the gap is incomprehensible. 3 to 5 years. That's close enough to be relevant. That's far enough to be aspirational. And then you find a way in. You create proximity. This is not manipulation. This is not being fake or phony. This is intelligence, raw intelligence. The fastest way to wealth is not figuring it out alone in your basement. The fastest way to wealth is learning from someone who's already done it, who's already paid the price, who's already made the mistakes, who's already figured out what works. And the way you create that proximity is simple. You offer value first. You don't ask for their time. You don't ask for their mentorship. You ask, what do you need help with? You come in as a giver, not a taker. You solve a problem for them. You make yourself useful. And when you've demonstrated that you're worth their time, the relationship transforms. Find someone who's been where you want to go and offer to carry their bags. That's the phrase. That's the move. You find someone operating at the level you're aiming for, and you say, I see what you're building. I see where you're going. I want to learn. I want to help. What can I do for you? You show up with energy. You show up with intelligence. You show up with zero ego. You're there to learn and to serve. What happens next? You get proximity to their thinking. You hear how they make decisions. You see how they operate. You understand their reference points. You start absorbing their frequency. And over time, months, a year, 2 years, you start operating at their level. Not because they gave you anything, but because you spent time around their operating system. This is the network effect. This is how wealth accelerates. You don't build it alone. You build it in proximity to people who are further ahead. You learn from them. You absorb their frameworks. You adopt their thinking patterns. And then you move into the next level. But here's what most people do instead. They stay loyal to people who are holding them back. They stay in the same friend group because they've known them since high school. They stay in relationships where both people are stuck. They keep the same social circle even though that circle isn't going anywhere, and they wonder why they're not progressing. They wonder why their income isn't growing. They wonder why their opportunities are limited. It's because they're still programming their brain with the same frequency they've always had. Your circle determines your ceiling. You want a different ceiling? You need a different circle. This is where I need you to hear something critical. This is not about being a bad person. This is not about abandoning people who've helped you. This is about clarity, about understanding that you cannot serve everyone. You cannot be loyal to everyone. You cannot keep everyone in your inner circle. You have to choose. And the choices you make about who gets your time, who gets your energy, who gets your focus, those choices determine everything. The 5 people you spend the most time with, that's your board of directors. Whether you acknowledge them or not, that's who's programming you. That's who's setting your standards. That's who's determining what you think is possible. So the question is, who are those 5 people? Are they the 5 people you need to be around? Or are they just the 5 people you've always been around? Evolution requires distance from your past. Your circle determines your ceiling. Find someone ahead of where you want to be and offer value. These are not suggestions. These are the mechanics of how wealth accelerates. And now that you understand the power of your network, you're ready for something harder. You're ready to understand what's actually standing in your way. Chapter 5. Money follows action, not theory. The world doesn't pay for knowledge. It pays for results. I'm going to introduce you to someone. You probably know them. You might be them. I call them the broke philosopher. The broke philosopher is brilliant. Seriously. They can tell you exactly what they would do if they had capital, exactly what business they would build if they had connections, exactly how they would scale it if they had courage. Their ideas are excellent. Their plans are detailed. Their strategy is sound. They can map out every step of the journey. They understand the market. They see the opportunities. They know what needs to happen, and they make $0, zero. Not because they're stupid, not because they don't have talent, but because the marketplace does not pay for potential. It does not pay for strategy. It does not pay for what you know. It pays for what you do. It pays for what you produce. That's the only currency that matters. Results. Think about it. Thinking about writing a book does not generate income. Writing it does. Selling it does. Thinking about a business does not create wealth. Building it does. Scaling it does. Thinking about improving your skills does not increase your income. Actually improving them does. And proving them does. The gap between thinking and doing is where broke people die. That gap is where wealth is lost. Theory is free. Results are expensive. That's why results are worth money. Everyone has theories. Everyone has strategies. Everyone has brilliant ideas about what they would do if conditions were perfect. Everyone. The person waiting for the right time has a theory. The person waiting for more capital has a theory. The person waiting to feel confident has a theory. The person waiting for the market to be better has a theory. Theories are everywhere. Results are rare. And rare things are valuable. So the marketplace pays for rare things. It pays for results. It pays for people who actually move, who actually build, who actually produce, not people who think about moving, not people who plan to build, not people who theorize about producing. Actual action, actual production, actual results. Here's what separates the people who are making money from the people who aren't. Action. Not intelligence, action, not talent, action, not credentials, action. The wealthy moved while they were still learning. They didn't wait until they knew everything. They didn't wait until the plan was perfect. They didn't wait until they felt ready. They moved. They took imperfect action. And something magical happened. They got feedback. Real feedback from the real market. And that feedback was worth more than any planning session could ever be. This is critical. Listen to this carefully. Imperfect action beats perfect planning. Every single time, the person who launches a mediocre product today is infinitely ahead of the person who plans the perfect product for the next year. Not slightly ahead. Infinitely ahead. Because that person is already in the game. They're already getting feedback. They're already learning. They're already improving. And here's what most people don't understand. Feedback from the market is worth millions. Literally millions. When you launch something, when you take action, the market tells you what works. The market tells you what doesn't work. The market tells you what people actually want versus what you thought they wanted. That information is gold, and you can only get it by moving. Every action produces information. Every failure teaches you what doesn't work. This information is invaluable. This information is worth millions to someone who's paying attention. But you can't get it by thinking. You can't get it by planning. You can't get it by sitting in your office theorizing about what might work. You get it by taking action, by failing, by iterating, by moving. The wealthy understand this. They move fast. They launch. They see what happens. They fail. They learn. They adjust. They move again. They don't wait for perfect conditions. They don't wait for certainty. They don't wait for the green light from everyone around them. They move. And the market tells them if they're right. Done is better than perfect. Motion beats meditation. I need you to absorb this because it's going to change everything. The person who is done is ahead of the person who is still perfecting. The person who has moved is ahead of the person who is still planning. The person who has launched is ahead of the person who is still preparing. Movement creates momentum. Movement creates information. Movement creates opportunities. Stillness creates nothing. Think about someone you know who's successful. Think about how they got there. Did they have the perfect plan? No. Did they feel completely ready? No. Did they wait until conditions were ideal? No, they moved. They took action. They produced something. They put it into the world, and then they iterated based on what they learned. That's the pattern. That's the formula. That's how results actually happen. But here's what broke people do instead. They optimize in isolation. They perfect their idea while nobody's watching. They plan the entire journey before taking a single step. They prepare for every possible outcome. They think about it. They analyze it. They study it. And then a year passes, and they're still thinking. And someone else has already launched 3 iterations and made money on 2 of them. The marketplace doesn't care about your thinking. It cares about your doing. It cares about your results. And you can only produce results by taking action. Imperfect, messy, uncertain action. But action. Now here's the mechanism that most people miss. Here's the actual law of how money flows. When you take action, when you build, when you produce results, money is the byproduct, not the cause. The byproduct. You don't get money first and then produce. You produce first and then money follows. This is backwards from what broke people think. Broke people think, I need money to start. Wrong. You start to make money. Money is attracted to movement. Money is attracted to action. Money is attracted to results. Money is repelled by waiting. Money is repelled by hesitation. Money is repelled by theory without production. This is not luck. This is not chance. This is a law of motion. Action creates momentum. Momentum attracts opportunity. Opportunity brings money. First move, then money will meet you on the road. That's the sequence. Move first. Money follows. Legitimacy follows. Your credibility follows. Your authority follows. All of it follows action. Never the reverse. You don't get credible and then take action. You take action and credibility follows. You don't get legitimate and then move. You move and legitimacy follows. You don't get money and then produce. You produce and money follows. This is why the broke person stays broke. They're waiting for the conditions that come after action, but they won't take the action to create those conditions. They want credibility before they produce. They want money before they build. They want certainty before they move. It doesn't work that way. The order is fixed. Action first. Everything else follows. And here's what's beautiful about this. It means you don't need permission. You don't need capital. You don't need credentials. You don't need a license. You don't need a business card. You don't need a website. You don't need any of the external validation that broke people are obsessed with getting. You just need action. You just need to produce something. You just need to move. The barriers to entry are lower than they've ever been. You can start a business with zero money. You can build an audience with zero followers. You can create a product with zero prior experience. You can produce results with no credentials. The only thing standing in your way is your willingness to move, to take imperfect action, to produce something even if it's not perfect. Done is better than perfect. Motion beats meditation. First move, then money will meet you on the road. You understand this now. You've accepted that theory is worthless without execution. The knowledge without results is just entertainment. That planning without action is procrastination. You're ready to move. But before you do, there's one more thing you need to understand. You need to know what's going to stop you, what's going to pull you back, and how to break through it. Chapter 6. Believe the belief before you believe the outcome. Your inner conviction determines what opportunities your brain permits you to see. Here's something most people get backwards. They think, show me proof and then I'll believe. Show me the money and then I'll believe I can make money. Show me the evidence and then I'll believe it's possible. They're waiting for reality to change their belief. But that's not how your brain works. That's the exact opposite of how your brain works. Your belief creates your reality, not the other way around. Your belief determines what you see. Your belief determines what you don't see. Your belief is the filter on the world. Change the belief and your entire reality shifts. Let me show you how this actually works at a neurological level. Your brain receives approximately 11 million bits of information per second. 11 million. But your conscious mind can process only about 40 bits. 40. You're receiving 11 million pieces of information, and your conscious mind is handling 40. So what happens to the other 10,999,999,60 bits? Your brain filters them out. It decides what's important and what's not. It decides what you see and what remains invisible. And here's what determines that filter. Your belief system. Your beliefs are the lens through which the world appears. A poor person and a real estate investor drive down the same street. They pass the exact same for sale sign, same street, same moment. The poor person drives past and doesn't see it. The brain filters it out as not relevant. The real estate investor sees it and immediately starts calculating. Same information. Different brains. Different beliefs. Different realities. Why? Because the poor person's belief is, that's not for me. Real estate is for other people. I can't afford that. So the brain filters the sign as irrelevant noise. The real estate investor's belief is, there might be an opportunity here. So the brain highlights the sign, brings it into focus, makes it impossible to miss. Same sign, different belief. Different reality. This is not metaphorical. This is your reticular activating system at work, your brain's opportunity filter. Your belief literally determines what your brain permits you to see. Change the belief and your brain starts showing you opportunities that were always there, but completely invisible to you. Think about when you decide to buy a specific car, a blue Honda Civic. Suddenly you see blue Honda Civics everywhere. Did they just appear? No, they were always there, but your brain wasn't filtering for them. The moment your belief changed, I'm interested in blue Honda Civics, your brain started highlighting them. They became visible. This is how opportunity works. This is how wealth works. Your belief determines what opportunities your brain permits you to see. A wealth-believing brain sees deals. A poverty-believing brain sees obstacles. Same market, different filters, different lives, but here's where people get stuck. They say, I'll believe it when I see it. But you won't see it until you believe it. That's the mechanism. That's the order. Belief first. Evidence follows, belief precedes evidence. This is the inversion that changes everything. You will not see the evidence until you believe. This is absolutely backwards from how most people think. They want proof before they'll commit. They want to see the money before they'll believe they can make money. They want to see results before they'll believe results are possible. They're waiting for external evidence to change their internal belief. But that's not how brains work. Your internal belief determines what external evidence your brain permits you to notice. Watch this dynamic in real life. A wealthy person believes they can make money. This belief is already installed. Now what happens? Their brain starts filtering for opportunities to make money. They're in a conversation and they hear something that could be a business. Someone else in the same conversation hears the exact same thing and doesn't register it as significant. Different filter. The wealthy person's belief has activated their brain to notice opportunities. The broke person's belief has deactivated their brain to those same opportunities. Then the wealthy person pursues the opportunity. They take action. They produce results. Then evidence appears. Then they say, I always knew this was possible. And people think it's luck or timing. But it wasn't. It was belief first. The belief changed the filter. The filter changed what they noticed. What they noticed changed what they did. What they did produced evidence. The evidence reinforced the belief. Cycle repeats. Compound effect. Wealth builds. The broke person never enters the cycle because their belief never changes. So the filter never changes. So the opportunities never become visible. So they never take action. So they never produce evidence. So their belief stays intact. Same person, different cycle, opposite direction. Belief is the door. Evidence walks through afterwards, not the reverse. The door doesn't open because evidence is knocking. The door opens because you believe it should open. Then evidence walks through. This is how every single wealthy person you know got there. Not by finding evidence first. By believing first. By shifting their inner conviction. By changing their identity. And here's the part that most people don't understand. You don't become rich by chasing money. You become rich by shifting your identity to that of a wealthy person. That's the move. That's what actually matters. Not the tactics. Not the strategies. Not the specific business model. The identity shift. Think about this. A wealthy person thinks about leverage. How do I make money while I sleep? How do I scale this? How do I build systems? How do I create assets? A broke person thinks about hourly rate. How much am I making per hour? How can I trade more hours for more money? How do I get job security? How do I get more vacation days? Same economy, same opportunities available. Different identity, different thoughts, different questions, different actions, different results. The wealthy person's identity filter is, I'm a builder. I'm a systems thinker. I'm an asset creator. So their brain filters information through that lens. They notice things related to leverage and systems. They ignore things related to hourly work and job security. The broke person's identity filter is, I'm an employee. I trade time for money. I need stability. So their brain filters information through that lens. They notice things related to job opportunities and benefits. They ignore things related to business building and leverage. Same information, different identities, different realities. And here's what's crucial. You can change your identity. You can shift the filter. You can reprogram the belief. Not through wishful thinking, through deliberate identity work. This is why affirmations work. Not because they're magical. Not because saying something makes it appear in your bank account, but because they reprogram your identity belief. They change the filter. That changed filter changes what you see. What you see changes what you do. What you do changes your results. A person who repeats, "I am a wealthy person who creates multiple streams of income," is not being delusional. They're reprogramming their identity filter. They're telling their brain, "This is the lens through which we see the world now." And the brain responds by starting to filter information differently, starting to highlight opportunities, starting to make connections that were invisible before. Become it first in your mind. Reality has no choice but to follow. This is the sequence. This is the actual mechanism. You don't wait for wealth to arrive before you think like a wealthy person. You think like a wealthy person first. You adopt the identity first. You shift the belief first. You change the filter first. Then reality has no choice but to follow. Because your behavior changes, your choices change. Your opportunities change. Your results change. This is not positive thinking. This is not wishful thinking. This is neuroscience. This is how your reticular activating system actually works. This is how your brain actually filters information, and you have control over it. You can reprogram it. You can change the filter. You can shift the identity. But here's what stops most people. Fear. Specifically, the fear of being seen as delusional. The fear of claiming an identity they haven't earned yet. The fear of saying, "I'm a wealthy person," when they don't have much money. So they wait. They wait for the evidence. They wait for the money to arrive. They wait for permission. And they never reprogram the filter. So the filter never changes. So the opportunities never appear. So the evidence never materializes. Your beliefs are the lens through which the world appears. Belief precedes evidence. Become it first in your mind. These are not nice concepts. These are the mechanics of how wealth actually builds. You've understood this now. You've accepted that your internal conviction determines your external reality. You're ready to step into the identity of a wealthy person. But there's one final barrier standing between you and that transformation. One last thing you need to break through. Chapter 7. The Wealth Asymmetry. Why most people never build it. There are laws for building wealth, and breaking them guarantees failure. Listen to me. This is the chapter that separates people who build wealth from people who think they're going to build wealth but never do. There is an asymmetry, a fundamental non-negotiable asymmetry in how the world works, and if you don't understand it, you will fail. Not maybe, will. And you'll deserve it because you were warned. The asymmetry is this. Building takes time. Destroying takes a moment. It takes 20 years to build a reputation, 20 years of consistent behavior, 20 years of keeping your word, 20 years of showing up, 20 years of proving you're reliable, 20 years of earning trust, and then it takes 20 seconds to destroy it. One lie, one broken promise, one moment of weakness, one decision made in anger or desperation. 20 years of work, gone. In 20 seconds. It takes 10 years to build wealth, 10 years of consistent income, 10 years of disciplined saving, 10 years of smart investments, 10 years of compounding results. And then it takes one catastrophic decision to lose it all. One bad partnership, one leverage mistake, one moment of greed, all of it gone. Years of work. Destroyed in a moment. It takes 10,000 hours to build expertise, 10,000 hours of practice, 10,000 hours of learning, 10,000 hours of refinement. And then it takes one negligent moment to prove you're a fraud, one mistake made carelessly, one moment where you cut corners, one time you relied on luck instead of skill, and suddenly people question everything you've built. This asymmetry is brutal. And most people don't understand it. They think the laws of building and destroying are symmetrical. They think if it takes 5 years to build something, it takes 5 years to lose it. Wrong. Dead wrong. The laws of building are slow and patient and boring. The laws of destruction are fast and violent and unforgiving. Building takes time. Destroying takes a moment. Respect the asymmetry. This is not theoretical. This is not philosophical. This is how reality actually works. And once you understand it, you start moving differently. You start making different choices. You start protecting what you've built with obsessive paranoia. Wealthy people understand this asymmetry. They are paranoid about their reputation. They are paranoid about their money. They are paranoid about their relationships. Why? Because they understand what most people don't. One mistake can undo years of work. So they don't make careless mistakes. They don't take stupid risks. They don't gamble with their foundation. But here's what I need you to understand. There are specific laws, non-negotiable laws, laws of wealth building. And if you break them, the asymmetry crushes you. The first law: debt destroys wealth building velocity. Not all debt. I'm not saying debt is evil. Productive debt, debt used to build an asset that generates more income than the debt costs, can be a tool. But consumer debt, debt to buy things that go down in value, debt to finance a lifestyle, this debt is a wealth killer. It destroys your velocity. It slows your compounding. It diverts cash flow from building to servicing. And one broken law doesn't slow you down slightly. Breaking the debt law doesn't set you back a year. It sets you back 5 years, 10 years, potentially your entire financial life. Wealthy people are paranoid about debt. They borrow strategically. They calculate every dollar. They understand that debt is a lever that can multiply gains or multiply losses. One mistake with leverage destroys you. The second law: comparison destroys focus. You cannot build wealth while constantly measuring yourself against others. Comparison is a poison. It makes you jealous. It makes you impatient. It makes you take risks you shouldn't take. It makes you spend money you shouldn't spend. It makes you rush when you should be patient. And most broken wealth-building plans fail because of comparison. Someone sees someone else getting rich faster and they panic. They abandon their plan. They chase a new strategy. They never compound anything. Wealthy people celebrate others' wins. Why? Because they understand that watching others rise doesn't diminish their own success. It expands possibility. It proves it's possible. It shows them what's available. But they don't let it change their plan. They don't let it make them jealous. They don't let it rush them. Respect the laws or the laws will demolish you. The third law: arrogance destroys long-term success. Arrogance is the belief that you're past learning, that you figured it out, that the rules don't apply to you. Arrogance kills companies. Arrogance kills careers. Arrogance kills fortunes. One moment of thinking you're smarter than the market. One moment of thinking you don't need to do the boring work. One moment of thinking you're past the basics. And suddenly you make a catastrophic mistake. The wealthiest people are paranoid about arrogance. They stay humble. They stay curious. They know that confidence is good, but arrogance is fatal. One law broken, years of work undone. The fourth law: shortcuts destroy credibility. There are no shortcuts to real wealth. Not real shortcuts. You can shortcut some things, but if you shortcut your reputation, your product quality, your customer service, your integrity, you pay a price that lasts. One shortcut seems small. One moment of cutting a corner seems insignificant. But shortcuts compound too, and when people discover you took shortcuts, your credibility evaporates. It takes years to rebuild what one shortcut destroyed. These laws are non-negotiable. Break them and you lose. Not maybe, you lose. The asymmetry crushes you. But here's what most people don't understand. It's not one law broken that destroys you. It's the pattern. One broken law is a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes. One moment of debt, one comparison spiral, one arrogant decision, one shortcut. These happen to everyone. But one law broken is just a mistake. Two broken laws is a pattern. Now it's not an accident. Now it's a choice. Now it's showing how you actually handle pressure, temptation, opportunity. Two laws broken starts to reveal your character. Three broken laws is your character. Three laws broken and you're not making mistakes. You're making choices, And your choices reveal your actual priorities, your actual values, your actual standards. Your future is not determined by one decision. Your future is determined by the pattern of how you handle rules and principles. Wealthy people are boring because they respect the laws. They move slower than they could because they're protecting their foundation. They don't take unnecessary risks. They don't cut corners. They don't compare. They don't let arrogance in. They move like people playing the long game, because they are. And this boredom is the secret. This is why it works. This is how fortunes compound. Discipline is what wealthy people do when nobody's watching. Not motivation. Not inspiration. Discipline. The ability to do what you said you would do even when the moment is hard. Even when nobody's checking. Even when you could get away with breaking the law. Wealthy people are disciplined when nobody's watching. They don't shortcut when they could. They don't borrow when they could justify it. They don't compare when they could spiral. They don't get arrogant when they've succeeded. They stick to the laws. Why? Because they understand the asymmetry. They understand that building takes forever and destroying takes a moment. So they protect. They discipline. They respect the laws. And here's what's beautiful. This discipline is invisible. Nobody sees it. Nobody celebrates it. Nobody applauds boring decision-making. But it works. It compounds. Over years, over decades, it creates fortunes. Most people can't do this. Most people see wealthy people moving slow and they think the wealthy people are weak. They think they're being cautious because they're afraid. They don't understand the asymmetry. They don't understand that the slow movement is intelligence. It's not fear. It's wisdom. It's respect for the laws, so they skip the boring work. They take shortcuts. They break laws. They chase comparison. They let arrogance in. They take risks they shouldn't take. And then one moment arrives. One decision. One mistake. And the asymmetry crushes them. Years of work. Gone because they didn't respect the laws. Building takes time. Destroying takes a moment. Respect the asymmetry. Respect the laws. Or the laws will demolish you. You understand this now. You've accepted that wealth has laws. That breaking them has catastrophic costs. That boring discipline is the real power. That protection of foundation matters more than speed of growth. You're ready to apply this understanding. But there's one final thing standing between you and unbreakable wealth. One last tool you need to master. Chapter 8. The hidden cost of distraction. You are broke. And I'm not just talking about your bank account. You are bankrupt in the only currency that truly matters. Your focus. In an economy of infinite information, infinite options and infinite noise, your ability to focus is worth more than your IQ. Your talent and your credentials combined. A focused person of average intelligence will run circles around a distracted genius every single time. They will out-earn them, outproduce them, and out-achieve them. Why? The wealthy person, in money and results in life, is rarely the smartest person in the room. They are the most focused. They have one mission, one business, one core goal for this decade of their life. They understand a fundamental law. To say yes to the one thing that matters, you must say no to 99 other good, shiny, tempting things. Broke people in money, in results in life, say yes to everything. They have a side hustle and another side hustle. They're starting a podcast, launching an app, doing consulting, and dabbling in network marketing. They are a whirlwind of activity. They are always busy, always starting, always chasing the next sparkly object, and they are always arriving nowhere. They are sprinting in 10 directions at once and wondering why they're still at the starting line. Let this be the mantra you repeat every time a new opportunity flashes in front of you. Focus is wealth. Distraction is poverty. This isn't a metaphor, this is mathematical. Let's talk about the brutal reality of opportunity cost. If you are splitting your time and mental energy between 5 different businesses or projects, you are giving each one 20% of your focus, maybe less. Now you are entering the arena to compete against someone who is giving their one business 100% of their focus. They are all in. Their mind is laser-locked on the problem, the solution, the customer, the innovation. You, at 20% focus, will lose every single time. It's not a fair fight. You are bringing a butter knife to a gunfight. The wealthy person knows this. They are ruthless eliminators. They cut away anything. Good ideas, fun projects, even profitable sidelines that pulls energy and attention from their primary mission. They don't do this because they lack ambition. They do it because they understand the cold, hard math of opportunity cost. Building one thing to absolute mastery is worth infinitely more than building 5 things to mediocrity. Master one mountain before you climb another. But the cost isn't just in your output, it's in your brain itself. You are paying a tax you can't even see, the distraction tax. Every time you switch contexts, from your deep work to check an email, from your creative project to scroll social media, from a strategic plan to a text message, your brain pays a tax. Psychologists call it the context switching cost. You lose momentum. You lose the thread of your complex thought. You lose the deep flow state where genius lives. It can take your brain over 20 minutes to re-immerse itself in a complex task after an interruption. Add in the constant ping of notifications, the lure of the inbox, the bottomless scroll of social media, and you are not operating at 80% capacity. You are operating at 30%. You are a Ferrari stuck in first gear, burning fuel, making noise, and going nowhere. The person who built a real empire protected their attention long before it was a trendy self-help tip. They understood a fundamental truth. Your attention is the title deed to your future. Whoever controls your attention controls your life. If you don't guard it with your life, the world will steal it from you in tiny, insignificant pieces until you have nothing left. Protect your attention like it's your most valuable possession, because it is. So, what's it going to be? The poverty of distraction, spread thin across 100 abandoned ventures, or the wealth of focus built on the unshakable foundation of a single mastered skill? You've chosen to protect your attention. You've locked onto a single target. But this focus is worthless if the world outside your walls is working against you. You need to build a fortress. Chapter 10, The Transformation Point. When you finally get it, this is it. The moment of truth. The line in the sand. Everything you've heard up to this point, the discipline, the focus, the standards, it's all just theory. Interesting philosophy. It becomes real at a single defining point, the point where you finally get it. And getting it has nothing to do with intellect. It has everything to do with identity. Right now you might be stuck in the questions of the broke, the questions of the victim. Why did this happen to me? Why is life so unfair? Why do they have all the luck? Why can't I get a break? Listen to the tone of those questions. They are backward-looking. They are focused on blame. They place you at the mercy of circumstances, of other people, of a cruel universe. They are the questions of someone who believes they are the main character in a tragedy written by someone else. The wealthy person, the one who builds and creates, abandoned those questions a long time ago. They ask a different set of questions entirely. How do I build this? How do I solve this problem? How can I create value here? How do I acquire that skill? Do you hear the difference? The shift from why me to how do I is the exact precise moment your power returns. It is the pivot from victim to creator. When you ask how, you are no longer at the mercy of your past. You are the architect of your future. This realization is terrifying because it means the excuses are over. It's liberating because it means the possibilities are endless. Your new mantra from this day forward is this: stop explaining your past. Start designing your future. But this shift isn't just a change of words. It's a change of being. It requires the non-negotiable commitment. You don't get it by listening to this audiobook. You get it when you decide that your wealth, your impact, and your freedom are as non-negotiable as your need to breathe. The principles in this book are not suggestions. They are the laws of physics for building a remarkable life. Gravity doesn't care if you feel like respecting it today. It just is, and these laws just are. The moment you stop negotiating with yourself about whether you'll wake up early, whether you'll do the deep work, whether you'll protect your focus, that is the moment your life begins. That commitment creates momentum. That momentum, no matter how small at first, creates a result. That result, however tiny, creates belief. Not belief in a theory, but belief in yourself. That belief forges a new identity. The identity of a person who gets things done. And that identity, once cemented, becomes your reality. The moment you stop negotiating with yourself is the moment your life begins. This brings us to the final truth. The burden and the glory. The responsibility returns to you. This audiobook did not make you wealthy. It will not make you wealthy. This audiobook gave you the map. It showed you the laws. It handed you the tools. The walking? That's on you. The decisions? That's on you. The consistency when it's boring? That's on you. The delayed gratification? That's on you. The courage to carry the fear? That's on you. Everything that happens from this point forward is your responsibility. That is the weight. You can no longer blame your boss, your upbringing, the economy, or your bad luck. The blame ends here. But that weight is also the source of your ultimate freedom. Because once you accept 100% responsibility for your life, you accept 100% of the power. You are no longer a pawn on the board. You are the player. And once you know in your bones that you are the player, there is nothing you cannot build, no mountain you cannot climb, no life you cannot create. You are the architect of your own wealth. Build accordingly. The clock is ticking. The choice is made. The transformation point is now. So let's be clear about what you've learned in this hour. Millionaires think differently. They're not smarter. They're not luckier. They think in principles. They think in systems. They think in compound effects. They've made a decision that their thoughts come first and their reality follows. They stopped seeking validation and started creating value. They understand that small, boring daily decisions become astronomical results over years. They protect their network because they know it protects their net worth. They take imperfect action because they know that motion beats planning. They believe before they see the evidence because they understand how the human mind works. They respect the asymmetric laws of wealth building. They protect their focus like it's their most valuable possession, and they move in silence knowing that real power is invisible. But here's what matters. Knowing these principles means nothing. Zero. You could forget everything I just said and go back to your broke life. And 99% of people will do exactly that. They'll listen. They'll nod. They'll think, wow, that makes sense. And then they'll go back to scrolling, back to complaining, back to waiting for circumstances to change. So this is your moment. Your transformation point, your how do I moment. Are you going to be one of the 99%? The person who knows but never applies? Who understands but never commits? Or are you going to be the 1%? The person who listens and moves, who understands and applies, who gets it and builds it? Your answer to that question doesn't need to be spoken. It needs to be proven in your actions. Starting today, not tomorrow, not when you finish another course. Today, that's where the wealth is. That's where the impact is. That's where the power is. Now go build. End of audiobook.